Tucker Freight Lines was dealing with the same IT challenges that a lot of trucking fleets face today. Computer software programs that didn't talk to each other, lots of manual intensive data entry, Excel spreadsheets, and cybersecurity. So they decided to implement a new Transportation Management Software System, or TMS. I'm talking to Charles Martin. He's Chief Information Officer for Tucker Freight Lines, and Adam Alderman. He is the Customer Success Manager for Trimble, who he worked with on the project. And we're going to get some insights into what Tucker has done and how that ties into some larger TMS trends that fleets should be aware of. I'm Deborah Lockridge, and this is HDT Talks Trucking.
So I'm Charles Martin. I'm the CIO here at Tucker Freight Lines. Tucker Freight Lines is in Dubuque, Iowa, and we've been here. I've been on board for a little over 3 years. The company was acquired in, I want to say we're about 7 years old. So the owners, AJ and Sonny Tucker, acquired the company from Art Pape, a smaller company here. So they've been in business. This is about year 8 or so. And we've experienced a good amount of growth from the high teens or 20s tractor units to we're about 200 plus now and 1,000 or so better trailers. We do van and open deck and some dedicated lanes as well. So just, we got a system, a TMS that was implemented early, and we've worked to improve the functions of the TMS to help our business grow.
I guess what are some of the things that you're looking for in a TMS and that made you realize you had to do some upgrades?
Okay. My background is that I'm an accountant by degree, but I've been working with TMSs for probably 20 or so years. When I came in 3 years ago, they were about 3 or 4 years into the implementation. So what we did was we looked at the version that we had, we looked at some of the strengths and weaknesses, and we decided that we needed to do I would call it a re-implementation or a full process improvement. So we had an older version, we had some missing functionality, we probably underused the system, and there was just a large expectation of what we needed to do. So looked at and been able to measure some considerable process improvements, measurable functional improvements as far as our reporting is concerned.
I know there's been a lot going on in this area over the past several years with telematics and integrations and AI and cloud computing and cybersecurity and all sorts of things that I'm sure make what you're using today rather different from what that might have been 8 years ago before you decided to put something new in. Adam, can you speak a little bit to kind of the overall trends we're seeing in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of the top kind of trends going on right now, it's hard to ignore the buzzwords, right? The AI and how to kind of leverage those type of technologies. But when I think of the realities on the ground for carriers around the country, whether it's Tucker Freight or some of the biggest names you've ever heard, right? The cloud is still the number one trend, right? Because the reality here is that the cloud is an unlock and is an enabler. It allows for connectivity, increased security, scalability. And, when you take those three kind of major cornerstones of what a modern tech stack becomes, right? You're really talking about how do I build an infrastructure that allows me, digital infrastructure, that allows me to take my physical infrastructure and keep it moving, keep it secure, and keep it growing, right? And so the way I see it is the cloud continues to power those unlocks for carriers all over, throughout all niches, right? And so when you talk about connectivity, not just between your partners and your customers, right? But also between your actual physical assets. Are you connected to your trailers? Do you know where they are at all times? Even as granular as where in the lot do they exist, you know? So you have the connectivity that kind of enables live visibility, accurate ETAs, asset tracking, planning, analysis and forecasting. So, you know, it really is, being connected is inevitably easier once you're in the cloud, and it unlocks a lot of kind of really great feature sets and, you know, in a lot of ways expected visibility, if you will, from a customer perspective. You know, I mean, we're living in a world now where Amazon seems to know when our package is going to be there before it even leaves the warehouse, right? And so, you know, we all gain this kind of expectation of visibility. On the security front, security, especially cybersecurity, is a cornerstone of how we protect our profits, our revenues, our businesses. You know, the cloud enables a trucking company to worry about what its core competencies are, while you have experts in cybersecurity working to secure your environments at all times. And the cloud enables scalability seamlessly. And so as you grow, and unfortunately sometimes as you may you know, do the opposite of growth, right? It's easier in the cloud and those type of infrastructures to utilize what you need. And, you know, then you think of some of the other trends, right? AI. I mean, you can't get away from this buzzword, right? But without the cloud existing, it's really hard to leverage AI, because AI also lives in the cloud. So, you know, the way I see it is AI is everywhere in 2025. I know my organization uses it for quite a diverse list of things. You know, that trend will only continue. And I think my number one cornerstone when I think of AI is how do we deploy in a thoughtful and responsible manner, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a human world, and we want to keep it that way, you know? And so, yeah, it can help with simple tasks like reducing data entry, especially, you know, when you're entering the same truck number into 10 different systems. Sometimes it's nice to have a, you know, an assistant, if you will, or some workflows that help to automate those things. But then it can also be cutting edge, right? So Transporion, one of the Trimble companies, does really dynamic AI automated freight procurement. So like if the carrier is offered a load, the AI almost can make the decision for you, of course, alongside a human, and that's where that thoughtfulness comes into place, right? Of course, there's plenty of other applications where AI can be a game changer, from the perspective of predicting demand, optimizing routing, you know, and PC Miler has been a route optimizer for a long time, right? That's another product on the Trimble roster, if you will. But when you start to layer in AI, now it's almost double optimized, right? So as you can see, like, you know, AI is not going anywhere. It's part of the trend, but I categorize the top trend still as cloud, AI being a layer under it. And then I think my third, and again, this fits into a very similar picture here, is really around integrations, right? Because how do we deploy some of these tools within our workflows, within our niches, within our, you know, the way we conduct our businesses?
CAT Scale Company provides the professional driver with an accurate and certified weight. We are the #1 choice for professional drivers. Look for the black and gold sign to get the weights you know you can trust.
So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about how these kind of bigger trends play out with real-world fleet that Charles is doing at Tucker. What are some of the ways that, Charles, that you're using some of these things with the changes you've been making?
So one of the changes, we did go to cloud. So we have implemented cloud SaaS, and the benefits were pretty immediate, more of a single point of entry. Security, we didn't say so much about security, that the SaaS has allowed us to take away some of the burden of monitoring and watching the systems. It's a all-in-one spot, which is also a benefit for us. Again, same buzzwords. The integrations that we've had, we feel secure that those integrations, based on the fact that we are in the cloud and it's all being hosted, are good, so that we don't have, if you will, runaway runaway processes, runaway technologies, which we had, and that was part of the reason for us making one of the changes. Mentioned AI. Obviously, we've implemented AI, but we've implemented and are implementing AI in this respect. We're not looking just, some people think AI is meant to replace headcount. So yeah, I can get AI and I can get, a reduction of X factor in headcount. No, we're looking at it to supplement the processes first, to help us. We are doing accepting load tenders via AI. We're doing some other things with voice text to make us more efficient. And as that process improves, you'll realize the efficiencies. And we like to think that we reallocate our resources as opposed to looking at the approach of replacing. We're looking at reallocating resources to make us more efficient in other areas.
And it's an accelerator.
Yeah, exactly. So the partners that we have, we've reevaluated as part of our TMS review. We've looked at the partners that we have. In fact, the cloud. We went to a cloud EDI program. We're looking at some of our other vendors that just don't fit in the overall integration model. So the other part is you asked me about our systems. We were able to link our systems. So we had a TMS, we had a maintenance program, we had all of these other things that were in their own separate silos. We've been able to take our systems and make them integrated and work very tightly so that we eliminate those silos of separate reporting. We've centralized our reporting to one, if you will. We use Domo. So people, Tableau, Domo, Power BI, whatever it is. But we've centralized our reporting so that when we come to meetings, we're all reading out of the same playbook.
I think one of the things that is really dynamic about the interconnectivity, especially your TMS and your maintenance software, is the human aspect that gets lost in it a bit, right? We could get fancy, talk about layering AI and all this, but the idea that you can have your finger on the pulse of your truck's maintenance schedule and figure that in to how you're planning your routes, that's about protecting your drivers. Yes, it's also about protecting your assets, but it's mainly about protecting your drivers. The last thing you would ever want to do as a dispatcher is send a driver out and then have a tire explode on them or whatever it is, right? And so some of these tools allow us to be predictive as well as just kind of understand, hey, this tire hasn't been changed in, X amount of miles. We ought to get into the shop before we send the driver out on it. And so I think it goes back to an ability to continue to be thoughtful about how you deploy these technologies.
There's all kinds of new stuff coming out on a daily basis, all the emerging technologies. It's important for us to find out where they fit, and all of them don't fit for us. We have to decipher what's going to be best and where we're going to get our best return on investment and work towards those.
Charles, what are some of the things that you've been able to integrate or make more efficient, or some of the success stories you've had with the new software?
So the biggest success story we had was basically getting our software that we have in-house and doing all the process improvements to make sure that they communicate. When I got here, our maintenance software did not talk to our TMS software. So that, if you ask me for the crown jewel, that's been one of the biggest ones that we communicate. We can do PMs. Our shop guy knows when to tell operations when he's got to pull a truck out because it's going to fail an inspection out. So that's been probably the biggest. The second largest, I would dare say, is our reporting, that we've been able to consolidate all of our reporting and to actually see where our units are, what the real costs are, what the real expenses are, so that we determine if we're being profitable or not, lanes being profitable. We're still working at those things, but we feel better about isolating and our re-implementation, if we will. One of the things that we did was we re-implemented our TMS to make sure that we had the proper labels and the proper accounts built so that we can accurately measure our profitability.
Yeah, and I think that actually speaks really nicely to another benefit, if you will, of the cloud, is the idea of being able to leverage big data and use that data to help make decisions. Right now, interestingly, AI can also help with that, but it requires, a deep understanding of not just what the data shows, but how you operate your business, how your business is different than others, and why that big data means this definition to how you're going to adjust operations. And so I kind of want to echo what Charles was saying here about how important the data piece is to kind of completing the puzzle of the modern, carrier tech stack.
Sometimes adopting new technology as far as people can be challenging. You get people that are scared that AI is going to take their jobs, or just being able to use the system effectively. So what are maybe kind of some of the things of that, I don't know, change management of how you do that implementation to where it's really doing the best that it can do?
So from my perspective, I think we've done a good job of presenting our technology stack as an enhancement, just what I mentioned before, not a replacement. And some of the tools we use, we went to project management tools. So we lay out the project line, we show what the steps are, and it helps our users and everyone else understand what to expect and what's coming. And sometimes people get fearful if you just don't know, and we try to enable our users and inform our users so that there's not that fear factor.
I think it starts with being thoughtful and kind of defining success. Like, what do we want out of this? If we can put that destination on a map, it's much easier to get there than have the ambiguity of what is our goal here. So I think that's a cornerstone of a successful training program or implementation program.
So Charles, what were some of those goals that you're going for?
The system just wasn't working. We were, the reporting was coming from, if you will, it's granular, but order scrolls instead of other reports. And when people came, the numbers just didn't match. It was a full overhaul, if you will. We went from using Excel to, again, using our reporting systems. It goes even further. It went from onboarding to offboarding as far as our systems are concerned. Some other integrations from recruiting software to CRM software, but it gets to the mothership, if you will, the TMS, so that we could do our business. That's the hub of all of those things. So yeah, we had to redo SOPs. We had to retrain people. We had to restructure our entire TMS with as far as labels. We've restructured our accounting system as far as chart of accounts in order to get segments of reporting for profitability. It's been a full overhaul, and fortunately we were able to form a partnership with our vendor, Trimble, that helped us. At one point we looked at selecting another TMS. The evaluation was the cost of re-implementing or the cost of rebuilding, and we chose the latter instead of the former. We rebuilt, and we're still on the path. We're not there, and
yeah, that sounds like a very, there's a lot involved there. And where do you even figure out how to start, Adam, when you're doing that kind of thing where you've got it through every area of the company? Where do you figure out where to start in that process?
I think it starts with admitting that there's room for a lot of improvement. I know it when I think about when me and Charles were kind of first introduced and we started heading down the path together. I think the two cornerstones that we knew about, or at the time that we wanted, the overarching, if you will, was about being able to leverage our data, right? And then performance, right? We need to also be able to have a TMS that's going to perform as we need it to. And as
Measurable.
Charles, immeasurably, yeah. And as Charles was suggesting, it's like these are complex systems that have tons of integrations, and they really are the central nervous system of your trucking company, especially from a digital perspective. And so, I think you got to start by admitting that there's room for improvement. And it's sometimes a hard thing to admit for some companies, right? A TMS touches, quite a bit. So you have to really come from a holistic perspective and think about your entire tech stack, your entire functionality within your organization, from the simple to the complex and everything in between. You really can't leave anything out. There is no stone that you should leave unturned, because in theory, if you are going to deploy this technology, the TMS technology and the aligned integrated technologies, you have to understand what it all is that you're trying to accomplish. It comes back to what I said before. You got to define your success early. You start by understanding what your true goals are, understanding what your processes truly are, everything in the business, from how you're maintaining to how you're paying your employees to how you're even hiring. Like, it all matters, right? Your training program, like everything in between.
Charles, you said kind of one of the big things that you really were looking at was getting the maintenance integrated with the TMS, not having those silos. What have been some of the benefits of that, of having your maintenance software and your TMS and everything all integrated?
We've realized where our costs are missing. As far as doing those integrations, we've immediately found where our the weaknesses. We found inventory discrepancies that we wouldn't have known because it just wasn't talking. We found that we are able to be more efficient with our preventative maintenance, our alerting systems, just in general planning, purchase planning for our shop. We're still working on that, but the benefits were immediate. We had a quasi system, a quasi maintenance system for preventive maintenance, because we weren't using them, they weren't integrating. And I think if we go back, I think we were spending about 10 man hours per week, getting a subversive preventive maintenance system to track that all we had to do was integrate it and implement the maintenance. So the return on that investment has been impressive. Time and money.
I would say this, carriers that are not leveraging preventative maintenance techniques, as well as not integrated within their TMS environment, are leaving a very important piece of the puzzle off the table. And that goes for owner-operators all the way on up to the biggest fleets in the country.
Yeah. And I just mentioned, we talked about SaaS earlier. So at one point, there was the maintenance software that sat here, and there was the TMS that sat there. And while they're still separate softwares, we've got both of them in a SaaS environment. So, and then they also communicate still. So there's been the efficiencies gained from both the SaaS implementation and from the integration.
Yeah, bring them from here and here to here.
Yeah.
That's a buzzword I've heard a lot lately, is a single pane of glass, of being able to see everything in one place. Thoughts there?
I would agree. I mean, essentially, one of the other overall goals for us, what we want is a all-in-one data point of entry. When we enter a truck, when we enter an employee, when we enter a trailer, something in the system, I want one single point of entry, and I want it to touch every other system that's needed. What we've done is create SOPs, our operating procedures. That was another point of emphasis that I had, that we have to have things documented on how we're doing this, so that A is doing it the same as B and C, or even better yet, that we only have A doing it because we've got a single point of entry, but we've got an SOP on how to do it. Yeah. We had a lot of duplication before.
And I echo a lot of what Charles just mentioned. I mean, I think single data entry point is critical, and I see organizations all over the country, whether they're shippers or carriers, really striving for that, because the last thing anybody wants to do is enter the same data in 6 systems that don't communicate well together. One little typo, in some cases something as sensitive as a capital letter, versus a lowercase letter could mean the difference between a workflow failing or a workflow succeeding. But to bring it back to the single pane, I see from a design perspective this concept being driven home really in all three of the Trimble TMS products. When I think about the future of TMW Suite, when I think of the future of TruckMate, when I think the future of Innovative, these systems are extremely complex systems that have the ability to look at almost unlimited amounts of data spliced in different ways. How do I, from my function, get the data that I need in front of me quickly and reduce the amount of clicks, the amount of letters I have to type, the amount of shortcuts I have to get to? How do I make this easier on me? And obviously, historically, right, we say, okay, well, you have 3 monitors, and then you put one thing on one monitor and another thing on the other. We have to be smarter from a design perspective. But of course, this is a role-based idea, right? Dispatcher needs something different than an accounting person, right? A maintenance person needs something very different than a dispatcher. And of course, we can go on. And the CEO or the CTO needs something very different than all of the rest of them. So I think the single pane.
As a customer, we want all of those things.
Yes, and I think the single pane is something that we all desire. I think that there's no one way of doing it. I think what you really want is you want configurability within your UI, within your user interface that allows you to pick and choose what is the most important to you. So I think that the single pane is critical as we move forward here, but critical defined differently depending on the organization and the role within it. So.
Charles, you've mentioned future technologies a couple times. What are you looking to do maybe in the future? What kinds of things are you looking at?
I better get my notepad out.
So, I'll be looking to see what our vendor partner has to offer as far as future technologies. We obviously want to hit. We want a one button answer, but for us specifically and granularly, we're looking for solutions for things. Total mail, which is our communication. We're looking for improvements in routing solutions. When we say routing solutions, how a truck gets from point A to point B with all the variations, all of the fuel stops in between, the hours of services included. There's just a host of things that right now just don't seem to run seamlessly. We, bidding, we've got a lot of things that we would like integrated into the bidding process, and there's a lot of products out there. There's some bidding software. A lot of it's still done in Excel spreadsheets, unfortunately. But we'd like to see that all incorporated in a future TMS where it goes completely from A to Z, from as far as routing, as far as that's concerned, even from onboarding to offboarding, that it's more seamless and secure. That's the bigger part of future technology is security, that we can get things locked up and locked down and not be so worried. If you ask what keeps me awake at night, it is the one person that's going to get through our security, despite the hundreds of thousands that we spend. That there's a little vulnerability right there that we've missed somehow, and we want the assistance of our
That's going to be helpful working with somebody like Trimble that sees this across all their customers and able to monitor it, as opposed to when companies with all kind of had their own little their A400 mainframe computer.
Well, that was one of the big changes. I think when I first came on board, that was one of the first things that they were looking at bringing it on-prem, and that was not future looking for me. That we've moved the opposite direction, I think, as far as monitoring. It takes the burden off of us locally, and it allows us as a trucking company to focus on what we need to do, which is moving freight.
Any final advice from either of you as to what trucking companies might want to be thinking about when it comes to their TMS and how to improve it, how to better use it, how to get a new one? Advice, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we touched on it a bit, but I really think the first step when you're going to procure new technology is defining success, right? What are you trying to accomplish, and when I accomplish it, what is the result of this accomplishment, right? So that way you can start to build the roadmap even before you've met a vendor. I think you also have to understand what you already have and what you don't have. And so, really from a very kind of direct perspective, you have to inventory every process and every touch, if you will. I think when you're onboarding and especially with a new TMS, but even with some of the smaller pieces of the puzzle, you really have to also design roles and create trainings based on those roles and make sure that people understand what their role is versus what someone else's role is. I think as you move through the process, testing thoroughly, this is a challenge, I think, for a lot of organizations because it's like, you start to test and everything seems right. And then you do like an edge case test and it seems to work right. And you say, okay, well, we've done 4 tests and now, it seems like we're good to go. Well, go live day comes around and all of a sudden things that in theory should have been tested are failing pretty directly and instantaneously.
So Charles, based on what you've been experiencing these past few years, what advice would you have?
One, you've got to partner with a reliable vendor. You have to have that because you've got to have some confidence and trust in that they're going to have the wherewithal to get you to your desired goal. 2, you need to have good processes in place. So I think we used to say, make sure you understand the as is before you can define the to be. So future state, current state, and make sure that you've got a path to get there and procedures that will get you there successfully. And just make sure that you do it. Adam mentioned you've got to test. You've got to go through and test these things out. We've gone through, I think with Adam, I've gone through, this is the 3rd one that we've made some significant changes, upgrades, etc. And the testing process has just gotten better. So the tool, if I were to offer to another carrier, is make sure that you're using some type of project planner, that you've got those processes and you can see it. I'm a visual learner, and when I see it and I see a full process, I see, the prelims, the challenges, the third-party integrations, the testing, the smoke testing, and then the go live. That's what I can see. That's what I can work with.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Charles and Adam, for taking the time to talk to me today about TMS trends and implementations and advice.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.